Yes, I know. Don't tell Josh. So, my computer up. Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. It's time for OJ. My computer updated last night. So, I didn't think that I should have to scroll the whole way down and find OJ all by myself, because we've been through a lot of videos. So you guys can get carpal tunnel with me. Here we go. We're looking for the video that we're at right now. But we have to get through the videos that we've been through to get there. Look at that. Look at what we've done, guys. Holy moly. This is stupid crazy. Still in the prosecution. Alright, there we go. Oof. We made it. We are at video 393. Out of 490. It says 498. That might not be completely accurate. So.
To the company.
Hold on there, sir. We're not ready for you. We gotta set up our spot. There we go. And then we have to set up our time, our speed. There we go. And then we got to make sure the looping is on. It is freaking on. I can see it. Look. This little dot right here. Under trial. Alright, I'm going to turn it off. Oh no. There. That's, if it looks like that, when I go to drive Tiffany to work, you guys get stuck. If it looks like that, I'm okay. Yeah, that's the one tiny little setting I have to figure out each day. There's so many little buttons to click. This is stupid. Oh yeah, we're so close, Tanisha. We are so close. It's crazy. Alright. Press play.
Now, this is the last line of questions, Your Honor. Dr. Gerdes, you indicated that over a 5-year period, you have testified in court about 23 times.
That's correct.
All right. And in those cases, your CV has been put into evidence?
Yes.
And you've been questioned extensively about your background?
Yes.
And you indicated, I think at the very beginning of the cross-examination, that there came a period of time, you indicated you got your PhD in 4 years at UCLA?
Correct.
Then you did postgraduate work for 3 years?
Correct.
Also at UCLA?
Correct.
Then you moved to Hawaii?
No, then I went to Denver for...
Denver, I'm sorry.
As an assistant professor for 4 years first.
And then you moved to Hawaii?
Then I moved to Hawaii.
All right. And you were asked about that, right?
Yes.
Why did you move to Hawaii and sort of get off this track?
Well, it was a personal decision. I had a small son, and I decided to play Mr. Mom for a few years, and so we went to Hawaii.
Your wife had an opportunity there?
She had an opportunity for a job.
And you indicated why did you, could you explain a little bit about why you had to be on television when you taught these classes at the community college?
Well, in Hawaii, there are a series of islands, and it's just the best way to communicate to remote sites.
And finally, Dr. Gerdes, you were asked about working for the pineapple factory. You recall that?
Yes.
All right. Does that have some relevance to the issue of contamination?
In fact, it does.
Could you please tell this jury what you did for the pineapple company?
Well, the pineapple company had a problem with their cans blowing up. In fact, they had...
What do you mean by blowing up?
Well, they would swell up and then just explode. And basically, they had some of the workers injured, in fact, from this. So I was called in to track down why those cans were blowing up, and it turned out to be bacterial contamination.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, thank you, Your
Dr. Gerdes, with regard to finding DNA on a steering wheel, is that unexpected?
Finding DNA on a steering wheel?
Yes.
Not necessarily. This is an extremely sensitive technique. It might find it there.
In other words, someone might have driven a car and left DNA from driving the car. Is that right?
That's correct.
It might have nothing to do with blood. Is that right?
That's true.
And blood could, in fact, be deposited on top of the DNA that somebody left driving the car a week earlier.
That's true.
Your Honor, if I might, I would like to utilize, I just can't remember the number, but the defense Bronco board. It was displayed earlier this morning.
Well, we'll trust Mr. Wooden to find it.
Take it to the top.
All right, this is 1309.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Gerdes, if I can refer your attention, perhaps I can get the pointer. And in particular, with respect to this, should we call it a yellow dot that's pointing up that says called real, that's referring to the signal or the dot just to the right of the 1.3 allele, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to that particular dot, that was a part of the Department of Justice interpreting as minor alleles, in other words, not as strong as the 1.1 and 1.2, the type 1.3, 4. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to that, and Your Honor, at this point I'd like to have marked as people's next in order. Not the pointer.
573.
Actually, do you have, perhaps I can do it this way. Dr. Gerdes, do you have copies of the Department of Justice's raw notes?
Yes.
Okay. And would there in fact be a one-page sheet showing the way that the Department of Justice viewed these strips and made notations about types?
Yes.
Okay. If I could then, what I think I'll do is show you this. I'm showing you what will be marked, I'm sorry, 5, 6,
573.
573. First of all, Dr. Gerdes, does that appear to be a Xerox copy of one of those typing sheets from the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And does that appear to be a document that you also have a Xerox copy of?
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, with regard to this exhibit, I would ask to place it on the overhead projector. And Dr. Gerdes, just from looking at the sheet from a distance, is item number 31 what's labeled DNA 18? In other words, what would be the third row from the top?
Yeah, I'd like to double check
Sure.
that just because it's confusing with
Please
the
do.
numbers. That's correct.
Okay. Now, if we focus on the third row down, labeled DNA 18, inside those boxes are a scoring system wherein the analyst looks at the strips and then assigns each of those dots a frequency, an intensity, that is how dark it is, relative to the C dot. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, then, Your Honor, if we could zoom in on DNA 18, a little bit more, that's fine. And Dr. Gerdes, if you could you tell us where the scoring for the 1.3 dot would be on this particular sample, which is DNA 18, but is LAPD number 31? Sure.
It would be under the 1.3 column, so it would be right here.
So that particular 1.3 dot was scored by the analyst, actually analysts, is that correct?
Yes, there are two analysts.
Was Renee Montgomery the analyst in this particular instance?
Yes.
And who else read that chart, read that strip as well?
Confirmed analyst, I believe, was Gary Sims, yes. Over in the corner over there. GAS, Gary Sims.
Now, referring to that particular interpretation, is it then correct that both analysts scored the 1.3 dot as the same intensity as the C
I
dot.
did forget. I love you. You're so smart.
Actually, they note that in two different locations on this particular scoring sheet, don't they?
Oh, I don't think I liked this video yet. I should like it.
The arrow now is pointing to that notation.
Okay, the first indication is where it's labeled C, is that correct?
On the strip, on the squares.
You're so
That's to the
smart.
left of the arrow? Actually,
Yes.
and perhaps if we could just point to the C.
I was wrong. I did
Yes.
like it.
Okay.
And actually indicated here as well.
So in other words, it is off to the right, it is indicated
I'm always
4,
happy.
approximately the same as C, approximately the same as 1.3.
That's what's indicated.
Incidentally, was Dr. Blake present during this particular analysis?
It states that in the corner of the document, so technically left.
Now, going back to the user guide, in fact, directs the user that any signal at an intensity of the C dot or higher is a positive signal that can be called, correct?
That's what they state.
That's what the user guide says, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, the user guide is the same user guide that you described as containing accepted scientific procedures, correct?
Yes, I've stated that I agree with parts of it and I disagree with others, yes.
With respect to the interpretation of dots at the intensity level of the C dot or above, that's a correct procedure, isn't it?
Again, I disagree with that aspect of it because it's in the presence of a mixture, and when you have a mixture, the dot intensity question becomes confused because the C dot is really developed by the presence of the primary contributor. So using that as a relative gauge is no longer something that I would do.
It is, in fact, what Roche Molecular Systems describes as an appropriate way to interpret the presence of types, correct?
I believe if you read the user guide, they themselves state that in the presence of mixtures, you should use extreme caution.
And in fact, they state that you should use caution in interpreting any mixture, correct?
That's correct.
But they also state that a signal that is equal to the C dot or greater is a positive signal that can be interpreted as present, correct?
That's what they state.
Now, I'd like to shift, if I could then, Your Honor, to what I believe to be 1310, but it's a similar board dealing with the Bundy drop. Now, Dr. Gertie, showing you what's been marked Exhibit 1310. You stated that you felt that it was arbitrary to call the 1.3 dot as present with regard to item number 31, the Bronco console, correct?
Right.
When it's not called as part of item number 52, which is the Bundy blood drop, as reflected on the typing strip on Defendant's Exhibit 1310, correct?
That's my opinion.
Now, I have an additional page I would like marked as, I believe, People's 574.
Yes.
Dr. Gertie, showing you what will be marked People's 574, does that appear to be a similar typing sheet from the Department of Justice that includes the DQ alpha typing of the Bundy blood drop number 52?
This is the typing that was performed on 1031, yes.
October 31st?
Yes, it's typed twice.
All right, then, Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I display the sheet?
Yes.
Now, this was a typing, and I believe you described previously that there were actually 2 DQ alpha typing runs on number 52 at the Department of Justice, correct?
That's correct.
Now, that is also referred to by the Department of Justice as DNA 55A.
Yes.
Then would it be correct that the second row down, that is, the second row below the first row,
It's right here, yes.
reflects those typing results on the Bundy drop LAPD item 52?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to the 1.3 allele, let's start with, and who was the analyst?
The analyst, again, was Renee Montgomery.
And was there a second reader or confirming
Gary
analyst?
Sims. Gary Sims.
With respect to their viewing of that original strip and the 1.3 allele, what did they note about that particular dot?
We state that there's a trace and that it's less than a C.
Actually, under the 1.3 box, they state C-/trace, correct?
Correct.
Meaning that the intensity of that dot was less than the C dot, correct?
That's what they say it is, correct.
Now, turning to the far right, under comments, there's actually some more notations that include C greater than 1.3,
Correct.
meaning that the 1.3 dot was less intense than the C dot.
That's correct.
And then is there also a notation that appears to have Gary Sims' initials?
Yes.
And what does Mr. Sims note there?
He also states it minus C minus, which was less than C.
The intensity of that dot with regard to item number 52 then was less than the C dot, correct?
Correct.
In comparison to item number 31, the intensity of the 1.3 dot relative to the C dot was different, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the user guide prescribes appropriate ways of interpreting evidence when dots are either equal to or greater than the C dot versus less than the C dot.
Once again, I disagree with that, but they do.
Objection, move to strike. Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled.
The user guide provides that those are different interpretations to be made or suggested to be made to analysts, correct?
Yes.
So in reality, what you have called not real in this situation and real with regard to item number 31 are two different situations, aren't they?
Well, the other aspect of this that you didn't mention is the fact that these 1.3s are showing up on the control strips.
Well, what I'm asking though, Dr. Gerdes, is with respect to item 52, the 1.3 is less than the C, correct?
Yes.
With respect to QC 877, the 1.3 is less than the C, isn't it?
Yes.
And with regard to the positive control, the 1.3 noted by the analysts is less than the C dot, correct?
Yes.
All of the samples in this particular series of 3 on Defendant's Exhibit 1310 showed 1.3 alleles less than the C dot, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, that C dot is very important in the interpretation of results, correct?
It's important when you know you don't have a
Incidentally, Doctor, perhaps we can remove the board.
During the holiday season, mornings get rough for videos. People are just so busy. And they're sleeping too.
In your laboratory,
And they're doing
these
so
protocols that
much.
exist, you want your analysts
So
to follow
they're
the
doing their
protocols that you have
thing.
in place in the lab, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention, if I can, to the area of the Bundy drops, number 47 through 50, as well as 52. And in particular, the potential you raised of cross-contamination. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
First of all, you've made no studies about cross-contaminating, that is cross-contamination among forensic samples, correct?
I haven't done any studies myself, no.
You've had no training whatsoever in evidence collection techniques as used by police?
No.
You have no personal experience in evidence collection of any manner, correct, as far as forensic samples?
I believe I've answered that, yes.
And you've conducted absolutely no validation studies involving forensic samples, correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe you are as qualified as Gary Sims to offer an opinion to this jury about proper methods of evidence collection?
I think I've seen a wealth of evidence that has been introduced, and with my experience in microbiology, I feel I'm adequately qualified to speak to those issues.
Do you feel you're as qualified as Gary Sims?
Speculation. Sustained.
Is there a term called hypothesis testing?
Yes.
What's that mean?
Well, a hypothesis is an explanation for something, and then testing it would be involved setting up an experiment to test it.
In other words, and perhaps you could tell us, what is a hypothesis?
A hypothesis is basically an explanation, and that is a possible explanation for something. And then testing it would involve designing, for instance, a scientific experiment to test how likely that explanation is the true explanation.
And that's part of the scientific method?
Yes.
As we're taught in elementary school and higher education?
Yes.
As far as this issue of cross-contamination of samples, because your lab is not a forensic lab, you don't conduct any investigations into that type of potential, do you?
In any scientific endeavor, scientific results are documented, or should be if it's a scientific method, so that an independent analyst who's trained in the science can look at, doesn't have to do the experiments, he can look at the data and do hypothesis testing based on the data. And it's frequently done in the scientific fields.
As far as your hypothesis, that is of the potential that these Bundy blood drops were cross-contaminated, you have conducted absolutely no testing to test whether or not that could occur in forensic samples, correct?
I have looked at the data as objectively as possible in terms of the results that the LAPD produces on validation and other specimens, and based on that, I can make conclusions about the likelihood of that hypothesis.
Have you conducted any physical tests to prove whether or not that could happen the way you have suggested it might?
No, I haven't.
With regard to item number 47, can you tell us how much DNA was in that blood drop when it was deposited, when the person bled?
Before it degraded, no.
Is that also true of item number 48,
That's true.
49,
Yes.
50,
Yes.
and 52?
Yes.
And in fact, the levels of DNA in a blood stain can be the level of DNA that was left there by the blood donor instead of from cross-contamination, correct?
That's possible.
You don't know how much bacteria was present on any of these surfaces, do you?
Well, I know there was enough bacteria to cause substantial degradation.
You have conducted no tests to determine if the amount of bacteria, for instance, in item number 47 was the same on through out to item number 52 on the back driveway, have you?
As far as quantitating the bacteria, no.
Is it important? Well, let me rephrase that. Would it be a factor in determining how much degradation occurred to know how much bacteria was in each of those samples?
I think that the critical aspect of this is how much degradation there is on the DNA, not how much bacteria is there.
Isn't it important to know how much DNA was there to start with?
There's no way of determining that.
Is it important to know that?
It would be, if you could determine that, it would be important.
Because that would tell you how much degradation actually occurred from bacteria. Isn't that right?
Yes.
As far as item number 117, and so we're clear, item number 52 was a blood stain on the back driveway, correct?
Correct.
Item number 117 was a blood stain on the back gate.
Correct.
Is it your testimony that the conditions where the blood was actually recovered from was the same for item 52 as it was for 117?
It wasn't the exact location. I think it was in the same general area, so I would anticipate the conditions would be approximately the same.
Well, wasn't one of them found on a driveway, a surface that is flat?
Yes.
Wasn't?
I was going to say I wasn't able to watch it back then. I was certainly able to watch it back then. I was able to. But I was so young. 94. I didn't even meet my husband yet, I don't think. Isn't that crazy? This was when I was still dating Dale, I think. My high school boyfriend. Well, I graduated high school in 91. So, in 94, yeah, I can't remember, but I do know that I didn't care one bit. Not one bit did I care. O.J. Simpson, okay, great, he's a celebrity, he'll never go to jail. And he didn't go to jail. That's how much I got into it back then.
One of them found on a vertical surface or something at an up and down location.
Yes.
As far as the collection of items number 115, 116, and 117, first of all, they're all from the back gate, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us how long they were in plastic bags after they were recovered?
As far as I know, that's not known.
Is that an important fact in comparing relative DNA amounts and relative bacterial degradation?
It might have some bearing, but I wouldn't anticipate it would be a major difference in terms of the amount of time.
You have criticized the use of plastic bags in terms of collecting evidence and transporting it and storing it in plastic bags, correct?
Correct.
Wouldn't the amount of time that a wet bloodstain was in a plastic bag be very important in determining degradation?
It would be relevant.
It would be more than relevant, wouldn't it?
It would be important.
What time of the day were 115, 116, and 117 collected?
I think it was in the afternoon, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to look it up.
Do you know how hot it was that day?
No.
Isn't that important?
It could have some relevance.
Well, it could have a good deal of relevance in terms of comparing relative degradation amounts, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us how long 115 through 117 were in their plastic bags in the truck?
I haven't seen that written anywhere. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of that.
Wouldn't that be important to know also to compare degradation of those samples versus degradation due to bacteria of the original Bundy blood drops?
It would, but those are a month older to begin with, too, so it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on here.
Well, a blood stain on a gate isn't the same as a wet blood stain in a plastic bag, is it?
No.
In fact, when blood dries, it becomes, well, let me rephrase that. Isn't dried blood a much better form to store blood in to preserve its DNA content than wet blood?
That's true.
In fact, dried blood stains are capable of being typed after weeks, months, years, or even decades in some instances, correct?
That's been claimed.
Well, hasn't that been demonstrated by the scientific literature?
Yes.
Aren't all of these factors, when an item was collected, how much DNA was present, how much bacteria was present, how the items were stored, temperatures, and each of the items that we have just discussed, aren't they all important factors in rendering an opinion about relative degradation in one sample and another.
Yes.
And you have rendered that opinion of comparing 117 with 52 without knowing information or having information about each of these factors that we've just described.
Not all of those are known, but the fact is it's an older sample, and my opinion is based on that.
Say that one of the samples was a month older. Which one are you talking about?
They were collected later.
Is that the only comment you're making, is as far as a 1 month
You're
period?
starting at a different starting point
And by starting point, what do you mean?
in terms of how old the specimen was before it was collected.
Isn't it correct that you cannot testify that those samples weren't deposited at the same time or within minutes of one another?
I'm not talking about when they were deposited, I'm talking about when they were collected.
Well, I'm referring now to when they were deposited. From your review of these materials, you cannot state that those two samples weren't deposited within minutes of each other, can you?
As far as when they were deposited, no.
Now, I believe, Dr. Gerdes, you described the fact that from your review of the materials, and I'm referring to the LAPD validation studies, that you could find no instance in which there was more than one run on the same day?
In the table that I looked at, yes,
Okay.
that I derived.
So you're going only by the chart that you made, is that right?
Yes.
As far as the materials that you have, and I'm referring to the validation studies, do you only have in your possession those particular records where you charted an event like contamination, in your opinion?
No, I have the complete set of records.
Okay. Can I refer your attention then to the date of May 6, 1994 in your records?
Yes.
And in particular, who was the analyst on the first run that you show for May 6th?
Colin Yamauchi.
Do you show a second run on May 6th by Aaron Riley?
Hi, Kelly.
No, I don't.
All right. That has to be marked as people's next in order.
575.
Which consists of two hybridization records, and I'll have the witness further authenticated. Dr. Gerdes, could you take a moment to look at those two documents? Is the court going to take a break at a particular time?
As soon as you finish.
With this area?
This is a relatively minor point.
I understand.
I don't have these particular documents.
All right. Well, perhaps we can just shorten it. Do those appear to be two runs on the same day, one by Aaron Riley and one by Colin Yamauchi?
They appear to be, but these particular cases involve casework, and I believe they weren't. I was not given these.
Well, weren't you allowed to see each of the testings in their books, that is the LAPD books, including polymarker as well as casework?
Yes, but these are not. They were not provided as part of discovery, and they weren't additional discovery that I obtained.
Weren't you allowed to look at the original records of those?
Yes.
Keep
I
going.
don't have much longer, but I have more than 5 minutes, let's
Keep
say.
going.
Would it be possible to take a break, Your Honor, to collect a few items as well? I assure the court it will not be lengthy.
How much time do you need?
Now, how much for the testimony time? Probably about 10 to 15 minutes. But I need to collect some items if I could.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our mid-afternoon recess at this time. Remember all my admonitions to you, and we'll stand in recess until 3 o'clock. All right, Dr. Gerdes, you can sit down. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Deputy McNarrows, have the jurors, please. I take it, Mr. Clark, you have
Jude,
all your
thank you
exhibits that
so
you need to conclude.
much. Thank you. People love gift memberships. They get that email, and then they're so happy.
The area of different levels of DNA in samples. You've described age as a factor that can impact how degraded a DNA sample is, correct?
Yes.
That's not the only factor that impacts that, is it?
No, there are multiple factors involved.
The substrate, the surface that a stain is on, can impact it.
That's possible.
The way a sample is packaged, let's say, after it's collected.
That's possible.
Whether the sample is collected in a relatively wetter or drier state impacts that rate of degradation.
That's true.
And temperature can impact that rate of degradation as well.
True.
So those are a series, or at least 4 or 5 or 6 examples of factors that can affect how a sample degrades and at what rate.
Correct.
Now, you described, Dr. Gerdes, your opinion that 28% of the time that there was a contaminant in your examination of the LAPD PCR typing that was not shown in the negative control.
Correct.
Now, that is dependent on how you've used the
I need you to tell me what I'm supposed to call you. Do you prefer RW? Do you prefer Scott? Or do you prefer something else? Or I could just say RW Scott 523.
term contaminant through all of your review of that material, correct?
Correct.
That includes dots or reactions from the various types that are less than the C dot, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, from your review of the LAPD, that includes a very large number of samples that in fact had reactions that you classified as a contaminant that were less than the C dot, correct?
That's correct.
In fact, that C dot is very important in interpreting results, correct?
It's important in interpreting a single sample known to be from a known individual.
And
Is
there's
there
Zach.
any instance in this case in which a
Hi,
dot is
Zach.
called as a genuine result where it's less than the C dot?
I don't recall. I think there are some that are very close in terms of my interpretation versus theirs from looking at the strips.
In this
Gotcha.
case, as to the results, and I'm sorry, your answer was you don't recall, but you think there may have
I think
been?
there may have been.
As far as samples that are called, again, in this case, isn't the fact that reactions are at the C dot or higher very important in determining the accuracy of results?
I've expressed my opinion on that.
Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Gerdes. What my question is to you is, isn't it a fact that in calling results in this case, whether those results are at or above the C dot is in fact very important in calling DQ alpha results?
It's important in determining that you have a minimum amount of DNA, yes.
And in fact, that's just what the user guide recommends, isn't it?
Yes.
It's what the package insert, that little insert that comes with the kits, recommends also, isn't it?
Yes.
And in fact, it's what Gary Sims followed in this case, isn't it?
Yes.
It's what Renee Montgomery followed in this case.
Yes.
It's what Robin Cotton and Paul Yates and Julie Cooper followed in this case, correct?
Yes.
It's what Colin Yamauchi followed in this case.
Yes.
As far as these kits from Roche, you don't have any complaints with Roche about the quality of the kits they manufacture, do you?
No.
They manufacture the DQ Alpha kit,
Yes.
the D1S80 kit,
Yes.
the polymarker kit,
Yes.
and in fact, you use your own kit for, let me rephrase that. You use the Roche manufactured kit to test chlamydia in clinical casework, correct?
That's correct.
Now, earlier, you described the fact that, in your opinion, contamination at the LAPD was predominantly in the reagent extraction controls. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you used the term at early stages, that is, at early stages in the DNA typing process. Is that right?
That's correct.
Where is that shown? Let me rephrase that. As far as contamination shown in the early phases or early stages in this case, where is that shown in the controls that were run in this case?
The substrate controls were clean in this particular case.
Well, weren't the other controls negative as well in this case?
The two reference samples showed evidence of cross-contamination. Other than that, the other controls were clean.
Reagent blanks?
Yes.
Positive amplification controls?
Yes.
Negative amplification controls?
Yes.
quality control samples?
Yes.
Aren't the fact that those controls all operated properly, isn't that an extremely important fact in evaluating the reliability of the results in this case?
In this particular case, you're dealing with very degraded samples and with low levels of DNA. It introduces a new situation in terms of how well those controls would be expected to work, as we discussed on problems. That's my opinion, yes.
Shouldn't be used to include people?
That's correct.
Shouldn't be used to exclude people?
That's correct.
I saw yours. I saw.
And Dr. Gerdes, the
That's
opinion
so
you offer about
crazy.
PCR and the fact that in your opinion it shouldn't be used, you offer that opinion whether or not there are RFLP results based on the same sample.
That's correct.
Certainly.
Further on.
Mr. Chick?
Dr. Gerdes, Mr. Clark asked you if there were tests that you performed in this case to confirm a hypothesis of cross-contamination. You recall that?
Yes.
If the Rockingham glove and Bundy blood drops were cross-contaminated in the evidence processing room on June 14th, is there any kind of a test that you could think of that could prove that now?
Objection assumes facts, not in evidence.
Overruled.
No, at this point, it's essentially the same DNA. It's been transferred physically, and from that point on, there's nothing you could do, any kind of analysis, that would allow you to determine that that's the reason that that DNA is on that sample.
He asked you questions about tests to determine levels of bacterial degradation. You recall that?
Yes.
Were yield gels done in this case?
Yes.
Did Gary Sims render an opinion about what the yield gels showed in this case?
Yes.
What do the yield gels tell us about samples 48, 49, 50, and 52
They're degraded, significantly degraded.
by bacteria?
Yes.
You were asked questions about the blood stains on the back gate that were collected on July 3rd versus the Bundy blood drops that were collected on June 13th. You recall those?
Yes.
Now, is it your understanding that all those samples were originally dry when collected?
No.
Well, were the Bundy blood drops dry before they were swatched with wet
No, they were
swatches?
wet.
The back gate, what about that?
They presumably were dry.
And if you put, whether wet or dry, if you swatch the sample with a wet swatch
Yes.
and put it in the plastic bag, is that what begins the process of degradation?
Yes, they're now all wet.
And in terms of these stains on the back gates, you've read the demonstration papers in regard to the effects of environmental conditions
Yes.
on blood stains.
Yes.
In your judgment, are those the rigorous scientific studies?
I'm not convinced they're rigorous, but they deal with the kinds of things that possibly could cause degradation.
But in terms of their demonstrations, do they demonstrate that sunlight on a blood stain over time causes degradation?
Yes.
Does it indicate that exposure to moisture and other environmental insults over time on a blood stain causes degradation?
Yes.
In terms of your microbiology background, would you expect that there would be degradation on stains over time that were exposed to sunlight, moisture, and other environmental insults?
Yes.
In terms of location, were samples 50 and 117 separated by more than a few feet?
They didn't appear to be, no.
Now, you were asked a whole series of questions about the relevance of the CDOT. What is your opinion about the relevance of the CDOT when interpreting mixtures?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
Well, in terms of a control, when interpreting a DQ alpha strip with a mixed sample, withdrawn. Mr. Clark asked you questions about the CDOT being a very important control. You
Yes.
recall those? And your answer was, it's an important control when you're dealing with one known sample, correct?
Correct.
All right. When dealing with a mixture, what is the relevance of the CDOT as a control?
It simply states that there's enough DNA there to type, but when there's a mixture, you can't interpret how much of that DNA is from the first contributor or individual and how much is from the second. And so the intensity of the dots become irrelevant.
So the intensity, when you're dealing with a mixture, the intensity of the dots relative to the C dot, what is the relevance of that in your opinion?
It's irrelevant.
Now, and in the user guide, do they say in a mixture that you should interpret that the same way you interpret a single source sample in relation to the C dot?
No, they state that you should be extremely careful when you know you're dealing with a mixture or you have evidence of a mixture.
All right, so it's not a clean bill of health.
That's correct.
And you go further in your judgment.
Correct.
Now, without bringing the boards back up again, with respect to the 1.3 dots, the faint 1.3 dots on the Bronco sample, on item 31, and the 1.3 dots on LAPD item 52, does development time, as illustrated by those boards, is that a factor in terms of the intensity of the dots?
Yes, by developing that longer, the dot becomes more intense.
So when DOJ, what is the window of development length at DOJ?
20 to 30 minutes.
And if they develop it longer, the dot becomes more intense?
Yes.
Less, shorter period, less intense?
Yes.
What about the controls in those samples? What is the purpose of a positive control when running a series of experiments like that?
Well, if you have any indication of dots or human DNA or artifacts that shouldn't be there, you should not interpret that result.
Is the expression in science controls failing?
Yes, the controls failed.
And if the controls fail, is it scientifically correct in any kind of scientific experiment to call the results?
No, it's not correct.
Did the controls fail with respect to item 31?
Yes.
Now, ask that these two documents be marked defendants next in order.
1315,
Sorry, they'd be
1315.
1315 and 1316. Actually, Your Honor, maybe we can make one. The first one, 1315A, and the other one, 1315B.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Clark handed you some typing sheets from casework that you had never seen before.
That's correct.
All right.
I don't think that was testimony.
Had you ever seen those two sheets before?
No. No. Well, I may have seen them while I was at the laboratory. I didn't have them in my documents here.
Were they produced for you?
They were produced for me, yes.
Were those two sheets produced for you initially by LAPD and Discovery?
They weren't sent to me specifically.
I'm not talking about 1315A
No, I know.
and B.
I may have seen them glanced at them while I was at the laboratory. They were not a document that I requested on Discovery. It was not provided to me to look at a later time.
All right. And were a series of these documents initially provided to you in Discovery?
Yes.
Now, this is Appendix 1295. Do those two pieces of paper that Mr. Clark you in any way change your opinion about the level of contamination that you found on runs at the Los Angeles Police Department between May of 1993 and August of 1994?
No, they don't. Those were all evidence items, and they weren't something I would have considered.
Now, putting 1315, what are 1315A and B?
These are 2 pages that were provided on Discovery. One was discovered with the first batch of Discovery, and the second was subsequently provided again at a different date.
And what is 1315A, the one you indicated that was first provided? Show. Please come back.
It shows a series of strips, and then some of the strips 1 through 4 have been blocked off. At that time, a number of strips were blocked off like this, and it was explained to me that this is because they were evidence items.
Where is it? 1315B.
This is the same page on a subsequent discovery when this time they're not blocked off, and the first item is a control swab.
And what does that show in terms of contamination?
It's contaminated with a 4 dot.
Were you dependent upon what was provided to you in terms of the materials about what you got from the LAPD people when you made your request?
Yes.
Mine was crossing guard and bus guard. I got the little orange belt. It was great.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, just a moment, Your Honor. With regard to that particular set of samples that you just placed on the board, that involved a control, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, on your chart, you note that control as having what you characterize as a contaminant, correct?
Yes, based on the second batch of discovery that I received.
And that was in January of 1995?
I believe so, yes. Well, actually, that particular item was mailed to me before then, sometime in December.
Where you were able to see all of the samples?
On the second batch, yes.
And that was in January?
Either December or January, yes.
So you've had that sample with all of the samples shown for at least 7 months?
Yes.
And in fact, both of the charts that you provided to the people both show that particular sample as one of your alleged instances of contamination, correct?
Yes, the point is that it was blocked off the first time I received it, and only through discovery being able to see all of the unblocked off materials.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive.
Sustain, yes.
12 years
Dr.
of it.
Gertie's what I'm asking
I
you
did.
is, didn't you have an opportunity to see that at least 7 months ago?
Yes,
And in fact, you got to see all of the strips that were in the binders at the LAPD, correct? DQ alpha strips?
correct.
You had an opportunity to see the polymarker strips, but elected not to review them. Is that right?
That's correct. LAPD didn't do polymarker for this case.
Polymarker strips have negative controls also?
Yes,
It is.
Now, as far as item number 117, Dr. Gerdes, you don't know how much was in that sample when it was left there, do you? How much DNA?
no.
And in fact, 117 can be a degraded sample, can't it?
According to the check gel, the yield gel, it's not degraded to the degree that the others are.
But it is degraded, isn't it?
There's some degree of degradation in any of these samples.
Now, with respect to items 47 through 50 and 52, they were stored in plastic bags, correct?
Correct,
They were left in a truck for some time, is that correct?
correct,
And in fact, they were in a wet state while they were stored in those plastic bags in a truck, correct?
correct.
To your knowledge, did that occur for a number of hours?
Yes.
With regard to 117, that's not the same case, is it?
A lot of those details are, I'm not aware of the details on that second time they did this.
I'd like you to assume hypothetically that when 115, 116, and 117 were collected, they were placed in plastic bags, and in fact they were recovered from those plastic bags in a time much less than was the case with the Bundy blood drops.
Find no evidence in this case.
It's vague.
Gotta go. Thank you, Josh. Be right back.
As far as the time that samples may spend in plastic bags when they're collected, wouldn't it be a factor how many evidence items were collected at the same time? Whether it's one or two others, or whether it's perhaps 30 or 40 other stains. Would that be important in terms of how much time that wet blood spent in a plastic bag?
If I understand your question correctly, you're asking me if it would make a difference if there was one swatch or 50 swatches in the same plastic bag? Is that what you're saying? As opposed to all in different bags?
No, the actual collection of a number of items so that the evidence collector would have to spend more time in the collection process.
In the collection process?
I don't know that this is an appropriate question for Dr. Gerdes.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
I don't know that that's an appropriate question for this witness.
Would you agree that the less time that a particular item spent in a plastic bag in a wet state, the more likely that sample would contain more DNA?
That's probably true.
Would you agree that in fact that could account for, in this case, the difference in DNA amounts in 117 versus 47 through 50 and 52?
Objection, speculation, based on no
Sustained.
evidence.
As far as these number of factors that can account for differences in DNA levels, you would agree, would you not, that the time spent in those bags would be an important factor?
It would be one factor that's important, yes.
All right, thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
1165. Mr. Clark has been asking you if you know the amount of blood to start with on 47, 48, 50, 52, 115, 116, 117, right?
Correct.
Does anybody know?
Nobody knows.
Is there any test that can tell us exactly how much there was at the beginning?
No.
Now, in terms of the amounts of high molecular weight DNA, there's 1165, based on the hypothetical chart, subsequently the bar chart. Does that reflect the comparative amounts of high molecular weight human DNA in the Bundy blot drops as opposed to 117?
It does.
A and B. Let's start with A. Do you recall seeing this chart introduced at the time through the testimony of Gary Sims, indicating a comparison of the concentration of 117 compared to the other samples?
Yes.
Do you agree with it?
Yes.
Does it indicate that 117 is much more concentrated than the other samples?
Yes.
Does it indicate 115 and 116 are more concentrated than the other samples?
Yes.
You know, you were asked about when these bloodstains were deposited on these locations, correct?
Correct.
Do you know?
No.
Excuse me, objection beyond the scope.
Overruled.
Also misstates the evidence.
It does. Misstates the question.
I'm sorry. Do you know when bloodstains 115, 116, and 117 were deposited?
No.
You don't know if it was after June 13th.
That's correct. I don't know that.
And you don't know if it came from blood that contained EDTA.
That's true.
Nothing further.
Mr. Clark?
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Gerdes, thank you very much, sir. You may step down. Next witness.
May we approach on something with that next witness? There's things we have to discuss.
All right, let me ask the jury to step out just briefly. It should be a short while. Could you reflect all the jurors that have withdrawn from the courtroom? All right, who's the next witness?
Your Honor, next witness is Dr. Terrence Speed.
All right. Mr. Harmon?
Yes, Your Honor. Tried to bring this up this morning. I just would like the court to know that we have no notes, we have no report from Professor Speed, which is not surprising in the way this
When you
case
say
is.
no notice, what do you mean by that?
No notes, I'm sorry,
Notes.
notes, N-O-T-E-S.
Got it.
And no report from Professor Speed. So I'd like at this point, we seem to have, contrary to what Mr. Cochran said this morning, you know, we're going to get all the notes. Mr. Blazer says we only get notes that we ask for. I'd like to ask for whatever notes he has, because I'm not sure that's the way you interpret Prop 115, but now that he's here and he's about to testify, it'd be nice to have some idea what he was going to talk about.
There are no notes at all regarding the subject matter of his testimony. As I have already explained to Mr. Harmon, I think it was also mentioned by Mr. Scheck earlier today, he did no calculations at all. He will be testifying broadly in a way that is critical of and contradicts the expert testimony of such witnesses as Robin Cotton and Bruce Weir on statistical issues. And he will be speaking in general terms about what's wrong with their testimony as an expert in the field of statistics. There are no calculations that are going to be coming into this witness, and that's why there are no notes, and that's why there's no report.
All right. You know, the hazard, though, of this is that probably what will happen is you'll finish your direct examination, and then we'll have a 2-week request for a continuance for the cross-examination.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Well, they may make the request. I think what you'll find, Your Honor, based on the testimony of this witness, which, by the way, as I mentioned to Mr. Harmon, I think if we start in Oh, in 5 minutes, there was a chance we might actually finish the entire direct examination today. It's going to be very narrow and very defined.
Well, let's see. I mean, obviously, that all depends on what he testifies to.
Right, and then you may find, in fact, that giving them the evening to consider the scope of cross-examination may be more than adequate.
But, Your Honor, I just want to object something. It's not that we didn't try to avoid this. Professor Speed can attest to this. I sent him a letter, as we have sent to other witnesses, alerting him that we had no idea what he was going to talk about. He was in the local hotel where all the defense experts hole up. He sent me a cordial note back saying thanks, but no thanks. And not wanting to be in this situation where I was going to ask you for a continuance so I could effectively cross-examine him, I faxed him every place I could think of, and I haven't gotten a cordial acknowledgement to this one. I said, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, talk to your friend and colleague Bruce Weir, just so we can avoid exactly what's unavoidable right now. I haven't gotten a response. It'd be nice if I had an acknowledgement that he got it at Statistics at UC Berkeley or at the local hotel where they all stay. I haven't gotten even that, but we've really tried to avoid this, and I have no idea what he's going to talk about. I have one specific item that I know he's going to talk about that I'd like to take up now. So we've really tried to avoid this because we really want to get this case going too. We want to finish this case, but we certainly can't do it when they sandbag us, where they don't even allow us access to have a cordial conversation with people whom they're colleagues with. So that's the reality. We've tried to avoid this. It's unavoidable right now, Your Honor.
All right, what's that other area?
The other area is the infamous letter that got my colleague, Mr. Clark here, the black mark. We're going to see it again. And they're going to try to get it in through Professor Speed. And, you know, I think you need to look at this whole packet of letters. This is a packet of signatories for which actually there are no signatures. There's the rejection letter from Nature, which explains why they don't publish letters with all these signatures on it. And then somehow, as if this cures all the hearsay, Professor Coyne.
All right, well, we've already dealt with this issue once before, haven't we?
Well, we're going to deal with it again because they think that this August 3rd affidavit from Professor Coyne, whom we love to see up in the blue chair, is going to allow Professor Speed to get this letter in. And I just alert the court that I think we should have some discussions about the propriety of this.
Well, I've already ruled on that letter, so I don't anticipate
Well, fine.
anything.
As long as that ruling stands, there's no problem.
All right.
It's my understanding that the ruling on the letter in part stemmed from the fact that it couldn't come in through those other witnesses. This is a witness who was actually part of the collection of signatures for the letter. He's not just one of the signatories himself, but he actually personally collected signatures for it and got
Well, then
confirmation.
perhaps he has the expertise to testify to its contents or the nature of the letter without actually going into the hearsay of the letter itself.
Right, I agree with you. I'm not planning on actually introducing the letter, but I believe that, you know, under 801B, he's allowed to sort of rely and consider hearsay as part of the basis for his opinion. I do not intend to introduce
But
the piece
all
of
of that's
paper.
still subject to 352.
I understand that also, but I believe, Your
Because
Honor,
I don't want to get into the publication processes and all of that kind of stuff, the peer review and all of that.
I agree.
Well, we would like a 402 hearing on whether or not this falls within 802. This thing was never published. I don't think it's too big a guess. He's probably never even seen half the people who signed this letter, and he probably doesn't even know the other half of them. And I think we're entitled to know if they're going to try to funnel this in. Remember now, we've had all these names read off, okay? They just want to plant this
Well,
in the record.
Mr. Harmon, let's do this. Let's start the direct examination, see how far we get. If we hit this particular point, and it seems to be a point in controversy, it could be a big deal based upon the context of his testimony, or it could be a very not big deal. I don't know. Let's see.
So where do we stand with respect to referring to the letter, Your Honor?
When we hit the letter, we'll talk about it. All right, let's have the jury. If we hit the letter.
Package I gave to Mr. Harmon.
Mr. Neufeld, you may call the next witness.
At this time, the defense calls Professor Terrence Speed.
All right, Dr. Speed. Right next to the court reporter there, face the clerk.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the false testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please answer the witness stand and state both your first and last name for the record.
My name is Terrence, T-E-R-E-N-C-E, Paul Speed, S-P-E-E-D.
Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Professor Speed, you've already given us your name. Where do you live?
In Berkeley, California.
Okay. And could you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your occupation is and what positions you hold?
I'm Professor of Statistics at the University of California at Berkeley.
And could you please, for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, summarize your education?
I received a bachelor's degree in science, majoring in mathematics and statistics at a university in Melbourne, Australia, and later a PhD majoring in mathematics at another university, Monash University, also in Australia.
And could you also summarize your professional appointments since the time you received your PhD?
Okay. After I got my PhD, I went to the United Kingdom, worked for about 4 years at the University of Sheffield. Then I went back to Australia, worked for 9 years as a professor in mathematics at the University of Western Australia. Then I left academia for a few years and had a job in a government laboratory as chief of a group of mathematicians and statisticians. And that was about 8 years ago. I left there and went to University of California, Berkeley, where I've been ever since.
Now, one moment, let's back up a second. You said that you taught at the University of Western Australia?
That's correct.
And while you were at the University of Western Australia, did you have a particular title at some point during that time?
Yeah, towards the end of my period there, I was the chair of the Department of Mathematics.
And you also mentioned, sir, that, excuse me, Professor, that you took some time off and you worked for something called the Division of Mathematics and Statistics.
Right, that's...
Could you explain what that is?
That's a division of an organisation with a very long title, which I'll give, Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, which is a very large multidisciplinary organisation spread all around Australia doing research in those areas. And they had a division of mathematics and statistics with about 100 mathematicians and statisticians, again located all around Australia, and I was the chief of that group.
You weren't simply one of the 100 in that department, you were actually the chief of it.
That's correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that currently you are a professor at the University of California at Berkeley. Is that referred to as Cal or Berkeley? What's the easiest way for me to refer to it for the future? I can defer. Is it Cal?
UC Berkeley, it's
Okay.
pretty brief.
All right. During the time that you were at the University of California at Berkeley in the statistics department, were you ever made the chairman of that department?
Yeah, I was chair for 4 years, 1989 to 93. Then I went on sabbatical and gave up the chair.
Could you tell the jury and myself and other counsel in the court, what is statistics?
Well, a one-line definition might be something like this, that it's the use of numerical information, or it's the art and science of using numerical information to answer questions of interest to people.
Can you give us some examples of statistics?
Yeah. One example might be, why does the casino always win at roulette? Another one might be, how do I design an experiment to test whether a new drug or a new medical treatment is better or not better than an existing one? A third one might be, how do we design sampling procedures so we can predict the outcome of something like an election with a very, very small number of people, just a few thousand out of a country the size of the United States?
Can you give us some, are you aware of any examples of where good statistics are used to overthrow some accepted but nevertheless erroneous view?
Certainly. There's lots in the medical area where new medical techniques and in former days new drugs became available and without proper testing were found by their proponents to be effective, yet when well-designed statistically valid studies were conducted, they were found to be ineffective. So it's now quite commonly used to screen drugs, not quite as commonly used to screen surgical procedures and other medical interventions.
All right. Are you a member of any professional organizations within the field of statistics?
Yeah, lots.
Okay. Are any of those, why don't you summarize it if you could?
Well, I'm a member of statistical societies, the major ones in the United States, which are the American Statistical Association and the Institute of Mathematical Statistics. I remain active in the Australian Statistical Society and one in the United Kingdom, and another one, the Biometric Society.
You mentioned the Institute of Mathematical Statistics. What is that?
Well, that's the professional organisation of people with a somewhat more theoretical bent, mathematical statistics rather than just statistics.
And have you been elected to any executive body in that organization?
Yeah, I'm a member of the council of that body.
Is that the governing council?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you were a member of the Biometric Society. What is the Biometric Society, Professor?
Well, that's a society of people who are interested in applying statistics to biology and medicine.
And have you held any office in that organization?
Yeah, I've had the presidency of one of the regions. That's a worldwide society which is divided up, I think, into about 10 regions. And for a period, a few years ago, I was president of one of the regions.
And by the way, the Biometric Society, which you said is involved with the interface of statistics and biology and medicine, does it also involve the application of statistics to genetics?
Certainly.
And by genetics, I mean, does it also involve the application of statistics to DNA typing?
Yeah, I think genetics these days includes molecular genetics, which is pretty much things related to DNA.
And are you also a member of the AAAS?
That's correct.
And what does that stand for, sir?
That's the American Association for the Advancement of Science.
And do you have any particular status in that organization?
Well, I have been elected to a fellowship of that organisation.
So is that an organization that anyone can just join, or does it require election?
Anyone can just join, but you have to be elected to be a fellow.
Now, are you currently a member of any advisory body which focuses on human genetics research?
Yeah, I'm a member of what's called the Human Genome Study Group, formed by the National Institutes of Health.
Could you please tell us what that is, sir?
Well, as people may know, there is a thing going on these days called the Human Genome Project, which is a very detailed study of the DNA in a typical human. And there is a whole institute of the National Institutes of Health devoted to research and promoting the broad study of that area. And they give away many millions of dollars each year to researchers around the world, but mainly in the United States. And the grants or the proposals that come in get assessed by this study group, of which I'm a member.
Now, other than your appointments to these various organizations, Professor, have you served on the editorial boards of any peer-reviewed journals in your field?
Yeah, I've served on the editorial board of most of the major journals in my field, although right now I've got off most of them recently, and I'm only on one at the moment.
And aside from your editorial appointments, Professor, have you authored any technical papers in the field of statistics?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many?
I think it's about 100, 120. I'd have to just have a glance. Yeah, I think up to about 120.
Okay. Could you please tell us a little bit what these papers are about and how they've evolved over the years?
Well, shortly after I did my PhD, most of them were somewhat theoretical in nature, but over the last decade or so, I've got increasingly involved in the applications of statistics to a variety of disciplines, but primarily biology and more recently genetics.
And even before you became involved in the field of probabilities in genetics and in DNA typing, were you involved, did you write a paper on nuclear reactor accidents?
I did.
And did that paper involve the likelihood that certain errors can occur which could cause a nuclear mishap?
Yes, it was a critique of a big study conducted by what is now called the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to try to find the probability or the risk of an accident from a commercial nuclear reactor.
And in your opinion, was your work on that paper at all related to any of the issues that you're going to be testifying to today?
Well, in the general sense that paper was a critique of the statistics that was used in that study. I was very critical of the study because it, in my view, misused statistics quite badly, and to some extent there is an element of that in the use of statistics in DNA profiling. To that extent, there's a similarity.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, approximately how many articles have you authored on the application of statistics to genetics?
I think it'd be about 20.
Now, you're not a forensic scientist, are you?
I'm not.
Okay. Do you believe you need to be a forensic scientist before you can give an expert opinion on the application of statistics to forensic DNA profiling?
I certainly hope not, because if that were the case, you would have to be a professional in any discipline to which statistics was applied before you could comment on it. And that's not the way things work.
How do things work, Doctor?
Well, if a statistician is going to make comments on the use of statistics in another discipline, then obviously they need to be familiar to some extent with that other discipline, and in particular to be able to appreciate the way statistics is being used. They certainly don't have to be professionals in that discipline. If they were, they wouldn't be statisticians.
Now, how did you become interested in the application of statistics to forensic DNA profiling?
Well, the interest in statistics and genetics is long-standing, and I think it was around 1990 there was a one-day symposium on exactly that topic, statistics in DNA identification, down here in LA, and I and a few students came down and attended it, and we got our first taste of the subject.
And as a result of that first taste on the subject 5 years ago, did you continue to do reading and thinking and participate in scholarly discussions about that subject?
Yes, I did.
Have you been asked at any time during the last 5 years to actually become involved in criminal cases involving the application of statistics to forensic DNA profiling?
Yes, I have.
And approximately how many times have you become involved in cases of that nature other than this case?
Twice.
And in those two cases where you became involved, did you consult for the defense or the prosecution?
Both cases involved a public defender.
And in both of those cases, sir, did you charge a fee for your expert work?
No, I didn't.
So in neither of them did you charge a fee?
That's correct.
Okay. And in the course of working on those cases, did you have an opportunity to review database ORADs produced by a DNA laboratory?
I did.
Which laboratory was that?
Well, we made a visit to Quantico, which is where the FBI sort of research, DNA research operation is based.
Now, in addition to those two cases that you were involved in, have you remained interested in the issue?
Yes, I certainly have.
Have you organized and or attended any statistics conferences, sessions devoted to the forensic issues?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
By the way, have you ever been approached by law enforcement to become involved in this issue to assist the prosecution?
I have.
And when was that and where was that, Professor?
I think it was about spring 1993. I got a call from the people at the Berkeley lab, which is referred to here as DOJ.
Would that be the same laboratory that Gary Sims works at?
Yes.
Okay, and could you please tell us what happened?
Well, I was just invited to come and look around the lab and chat to people because they had heard, presumably through my involvement with these cases, that I'm interested in the subject. So I looked around and we exchanged views.
And at that time with that meeting at the Department of Justice Laboratory, did you share your thoughts and criticisms of the statistical applications being used by the laboratory?
Yeah, I did. I got the impression that they would have liked me to...
Sustain.
Now, aside from that experience you had at the DOJ laboratory when they invited you there to view their laboratory work and to discuss these issues with them, have you ever, on any other occasion, assisted law enforcement?
Yes.
And could you please tell us when that was?
I think it was early 1993. I was approached by people from, well, they were based in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, but one of the people was a federal prosecutor, I believe.
And to your knowledge, by the way, Professor Speed, is Mr. Harmon here a member of the Alameda County District Attorney's Office?
I believe so.
Okay. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, they were working on a case involving the possibility of the sale of contaminated meat in a supermarket chain. There'd been quite a number of tests that had proved to be positive for contamination, and they wanted to organise a sampling plan to see if this was systematic and not just occasional contamination.
So did law enforcement at that time use your expertise in the field of statistics to help them design the appropriate study for the prosecution?
They did.
And by the way, when you did that work for the Alameda County District Attorney's Office back in 1993, did you personally receive any compensation for that work?
No.
Would I be correct in saying, Professor, that this is actually, though, your first time testifying in a court of law on the forensic application of DNA?
That's correct.
Are you a little bit nervous? No? Okay. Now, you mentioned that in the two times where you assisted the defense that you didn't charge any compensation, and you mentioned that the time that you assisted the prosecution in their case that you didn't charge any fee as well. In this case, are you accepting any fee, any money at all in exchange for your time and your expertise and your testimony?
No.
Now, Professor, are you familiar with Dr. Bruce Weir, who testified in this case as a prosecution witness?
I am.
Has Dr. Weir ever sought your input on his writing on the statistical applications of forensic DNA issues?
Yeah, he has.
Now, Dr. Weir testified that he had no background in forensic science and no training in forensic science. Do you have any training at all in that area?
No.
After you became involved in this case, Professor, did you review any of the testimony of different witnesses?
I did.
And which testimony have you reviewed?
I've reviewed Dr. Weir's, I've reviewed Mr. Sims, I've reviewed Dr. Cotton's, and I've seen some of the testimony from the LAPD, like Mr. Yamauchi. So,
Have you also, are you also familiar with the testimony that Dr. Gerdes gave during the last several days?
yes, I've been watching and I've been present for some of it.
Have you reviewed any of the open proficiency test data that these laboratories talked about?
I have.
Have you reviewed Dr. Weir's report and the calculations contained therein?
Yes.
By the way, Professor, have you written a report for this case?
I have not.
Have you been asked to make any calculations in regard to this case?
No.
Now, other than reviewing the materials that you described, have you met with the lawyers to discuss these issues?
I have.
On a number of occasions?
Yeah, on about 3 occasions, I think, 3 or 4, over several months.
And what, if anything else, have you done to prepare yourself for your testimony today?
Well, basically, read lots and lots of stuff, talk to people, and think about it.
As an expert in the field of statistics, Professor, is it the case that sometimes people misinterpret the meaning of a statistical statement?
I think that's very frequent.
How does it happen, or can you give examples of it?
Well, I think when people make statements, particularly statements about probabilities or frequencies, it's often unclear just what is the event, the precise event whose probability or whose frequency is being spoken of. It's also often clear what are the assumptions under which this calculation is being made. And how the calculation is being made is also relevant, and that's very rarely something people know.
Professor, have you seen small Xerox copies of the various evidence boards that have been prepared by the prosecution? And I'll just use this as, for illustrative purposes, the, yeah. Just put up a second. And I put up the people's item number 260. Okay. Have you seen reduced Xerox copies of this board?
Yes.
Okay. And have you also seen reduced Xerox copies of the other boards for Rockingham DNA profiling, Bundy DNA profiling, and the Glove DNA profiling?
Yeah, I have them. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, apropos of what you just said, sir, about the meaning of statistical statements. For instance, are the frequencies reflected on the last column on these evidence boards, are they the probability of Mr. Simpson's guilt or innocence?
No, they're not.
Are the frequencies on these evidence boards the probability that someone other than Mr. Simpson is the source of any particular stain?
No, they're not.
What do these numbers tell the jury about the probability of a false or misleading match being reported due to errors in the collection and handling of samples?
Nothing.
What do these numbers tell us about the probability of a false or misleading, what do these numbers tell us about the probability of a false or misleading match being reported due to evidence tampering?
Nothing.
Are these numbers on the boards relevant if the matches are determined to be due to cross-contamination?
If the match has been determined to be, then no, not relevant at all.
Now, are you familiar, sir, with Dr. Robin Cotton's testimony about her reporting of how Cellmark did on the California Association open proficiency testing? Do you recall that?
I do.
And do you recall when she testified that with respect to one of the batches of 50 samples that they received, that there was a match that she gave a frequency for of 1 in 1.8 billion. Do you remember that?
I do.
And do you remember her testimony when she said that later on the submitting agency told her that they had a false positive? Do you recall that, sir?
I do.
And do you recall her then saying that, having learned that it was a false positive, that the statistic of 1 in 1.8 billion was irrelevant? Remember that?
I do.
And do you agree with that?
I do, yes.
Now, what, if anything, did these frequencies tell us about the probability that swatches were mixed up at the Los Angeles Police Department?
They tell you nothing.
I can put this down there.
Why don't you let Mr. Harris handle it?
Sorry. You know, Professor, Dr. Cotton, Mr. Sims, and Dr. Weir have each given their own opinion as to how rare particular DNA profiles are in this case. You familiar with their testimony?
Yes.
In order to assess the evidentiary significance of these DNA typings, are there other frequencies that are also important?
I believe so.
And I think you said that you're also familiar with the testimony of Dr. Gerdes regarding the various opportunities for error in this case?
I am, yes.
Now, when you're thinking about the other frequencies, which would also be important to consider, is it also important from a statistical standpoint to consider the chance that the reported matches are the result of error in crime scene collection and packaging?
I believe so.
It is important to consider from a statistical standpoint the chance that the reported matches are the result of error when the evidence is unpacked at the Los Angeles Police Department.
Yes.
Is it important to consider from a statistical standpoint the chance that the reported matches are the result of error when the evidence is put into bindles on the next morning?
Yes.
Is it important from a statistical standpoint to consider the chance that the reported matches are the result of error when the Bundy drops and Mr. Simpson's reference sample are processed by Mr. Yamauchi?
Leading.
What, sir, would be the importance? Well, is there any importance at all to, from a statistical standpoint, to assessing the chance that reported matches are the result of error when the Bundy drops and Mr. Simpson's reference sample are processed by Mr. Yamauchi at the LAPD?
Yes. I mean, all stages in the process are relevant to assessing this chance.
Now, again, from a statistical standpoint, is it important to consider the chance that the reported matches are the result of error in the DNA testing laboratory, for instance?
Yes.
Is it also important to consider the chance that a reported match is a true match, but that the source is someone other than Mr. Simpson, but someone who has the same DNA profile of him at the loci that have been studied?
Compound the first question.
Okay. From a statistical standpoint, is it important to consider the chance that a reported match is a true match?
Yes.
Okay? And is it important to consider that, from a statistical standpoint, that the source of that match is someone other than Mr. Simpson, but that someone is simply someone who has the same DNA profile as Mr. Simpson?
Yes, that's a factor too.
And in fact, Professor, is it in response to that last question that the prosecution experts listed those frequencies in the final column of those various boards?
Sustain. First
Well,
question.
do the frequencies on those boards address that last question?
Yes, as far as I can see, that's the only question that those frequencies speak to.
From a statistical standpoint, Professor, is it important to consider the chance that it may really be Mr. Simpson's blood, but that the drops were left by Mr. Simpson at some earlier date?
Sustain.
Okay. From a statistical standpoint, if you were to consider simply for the purpose of this question the Bundy drops on the walkway, sir, would it be important to consider the chance that it may really be Mr. Simpson's blood on that walkway, but that those drops were left by Mr. Simpson at an earlier date?
Speculation, you can quantify it.
Sustain.
From a statistical standpoint, is it important to consider the chance of various alternative hypotheses to explain certain data?
Speculation is no foundation.
Yes.
And is that something that is within the field of statistics?
I believe so.
Okay. Are you familiar with Dr. Weir's testimony where he said that all of his calculations assume the validity of all the DNA testing done in this case?
Yes.
From a statistical standpoint, is Dr. Weir's assumption scientifically appropriate in your opinion?
I don't believe so.
And why not?
Well, I believe that the possibility of errors can never be ruled out, and therefore there is an incompleteness in any evaluation that is based on the assumption that no errors could have happened.
Now, Professor, are these views criticizing Dr. Weir's position just yours, or have you considered the opinions of other experts in reaching your conclusions on this point?
Hearsay, no foundation.
Foundation.
All right. In reaching your opinion that you just gave about Dr. Weir's conclusion, did you consider the report issued by the National Research Council of the National Academy of Science?
I did.
And which portions, one moment, By the way, Professor, are you aware of the views of other experts in your field on this particular issue that I just addressed?
I certainly am. Yeah.
And have you considered the views of other experts in helping to reach your opinion that you're providing this jury with today
I
on the
have.
witness stand? And I believe you said that one source that you have considered in giving your testimony today are the conclusions of the National Research Council of the National Academy of Science. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And could you please tell us which portions of this book, of this report, that you considered in helping to frame your position on the witness stand today?
Well, I've want me to read the actual pages. I mean,
Well,
there are,
could you please tell us can you give us a page reference, please?
well, perhaps I'll start with the very first one, which is a page that doesn't actually have a number. That is opposite the contents page.
Then,
There's a discussion there of errors.
Mr. Neufeld, let's do this by question and answer rather than having the doctor read us the book.
okay. All right. Professor, could you turn to page 160 first? In reaching your opinions as an expert on these issues involving the statistical applications to forensic DNA profiling, have you considered the following quote, reading from the bottom of page 160? Quote,
Okay, if it says no, then the content of it, that's
all right, could you please look at the paragraph beginning on the bottom of page 160 and ending on the top of 161?
Yes?
Is that one of the quotes that you have considered and taken into account in helping to develop your opinion that you're giving on the witness stand today?
It certainly is.
May I now? Thank you. Now, I'm quoting now from the NRC report at the bottom of page 160. Quote, expectations regarding the power of DNA typing can lead to overlooking or ignoring sources of error or mistakes in applying the technology. For example, jurors focusing on the probability of correctly identifying a perpetrator might lead them to discount the possibility of laboratory error, whether it stems from incompetence or carelessness of personnel, malfunctioning equipment, or unavoidable mistakes. Did I read that accurately?
I believe so.
Okay. So what is the meaning of that quote?
Well, I think it says that you should be conscious not just of the frequencies of the particular multilocus genotypes that are quoted, but also be aware of the possibility of errors of the kinds that have been stated and the frequencies with which these errors might occur and contribute to a wrongful result.
Could you please put up slide 1? Now, referring you specifically to different sections of this report, have you considered, I'm sorry, you began to say before that you considered a portion of the preface or prefatory language?
Yes.
Now, I call your attention, sir, to the page directly preceding the table of contents.
I have it.
In the third paragraph, did you consider, in helping to develop your own opinion on these matters, consider that first sentence in the third paragraph?
I did.
Would you please put up slide 2? And sir, can you see it from where you're sitting?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, doctor, if you look, there's a monitor right to your right.
Oh.
Void next screen.
Now, the report says that, quote, we regard the accreditation and proficiency testing of DNA typing laboratories as essential to the scientific accuracy, reliability, and acceptability of DNA typing evidence in the future. By the way, do you know when this report was published?
I believe it was April 1992.
Okay. And sir, could you please explain what is meant by that statement?
Well, that the authors of the report think it important that agencies that do DNA testing get accredited and participate in proficiency testing. Otherwise, the scientific accuracy, reliability, and acceptability might be compromised.
Have you also considered the language that appears on page 88?
Yes.
And the specific portion that I'm referring to, one moment. Beginning with the second paragraph on the page.
Yep.
And is that one of the portions of this report that you have considered in reaching your opinions today on the witness stand?
I certainly have.
Could you please put up slide 4? Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you if you agree with the following quote from the NRC report. Interpretation of DNA typing results depends not only on population genetics, but also on laboratory error. Two samples might show the same DNA pattern for two reasons. Two persons have the same genotype at the loci studied, or the laboratory has made an error in sample handling, procedure, or interpretation. Coincidental identity and laboratory error are different phenomena, so the two cannot and should not be combined in a single estimate. However, both should be considered. What are the authors saying at this point, Professor?
Sustain.
Well, how does this quote affect your own opinion on this particular issue?
Well, it states very strongly that in addition to the frequencies that are associated with coincidental match, there should be some estimate of frequencies of errors of different kinds.
And why is that?
Because both can contribute to an incorrect conclusion about the source of a DNA profile or the source of a stain.
Now, sir, in addition to that paragraph on page 88, did you also, can I call your attention to page 89? And I call your attention to the first paragraph. Is that a paragraph or a portion of this report that you have considered in the development of your own opinions that you're giving on the witness stand today?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please put up slide 5? I'm quoting from page 89. Especially for a technology with high discriminatory, quote, especially for a technology with high discriminatory power, such as DNA typing, laboratory error rates must be continually estimated in blind proficiency testing and must be disclosed to juries. For example, suppose the chance of a match due to two persons having the same pattern were 1 in 1 million, but the laboratory had made one error in 500 tests. The jury should be told both results, both facts are relevant to a jury's determination. In your opinion, sir, are both facts relevant to a jury's determination?
I believe so.
And why is that?
Because, as I said earlier, there are two different ways in which incorrect conclusions can be reached. One is a chance coincidental match, and the other is that the result could be as a result of laboratory error.
And sir, again, in helping to develop your opinions on this particular matter, did you also consider page 15?
Yes, I did.
And I'm referring specifically to the second bullet on the page.
Yes.
Could you please put up slide 3? Your Honor, before we go any further, I've been reminded by Mr. Cochran that I did not ask for a number for this for next in order. It's my recollection that this exhibit was shown to someone else.
You're actually reading this into the record, so it's in the record.
Maybe approach the other, because I think Mr. Nico has spoken some interesting words. Maybe we approach him?
No.
Well, I'd like to discuss what he just said and what he told me before we started.
A little later point. Proceed.
Reading from page...
Have these previously been marked on?
No, they have not. You want to mark it as an exhibit, continuing exhibit?
We can mark it as an exhibit.
No. Proceed.
Referring you now to page 15, and I quote from the section. It says, laboratory error rates should be measured with appropriate proficiency tests and should play a role in the interpretation of results of forensic DNA typing. Do you agree with that statement?
I do.
And what does that statement mean to you?
It means that there should be appropriate proficiency tests, where appropriate remains to be defined, for establishing laboratory error rates, which then should be available for interpreting the results of forensic DNA testing.
And sir, finally, referring you to page 89,
Love the accent.
one moment. Referring you now to the third paragraph on the page. Have you considered that portion of the report also of the National Research Council in helping you to develop your own opinion on these matters?
I have.
And now, with the court's permission, I'd put up slide 6, please. And again, Professor, I'm quoting from the National Research Council's report, page 89, where it states, quote, reported error rates should be based on proficiency tests that are truly representative of case materials with respect to sample quality, accompanying description, etc. What does that, first of all, do you agree with that?
I do.
And what does it mean to you, sir?
Well, it means that the reported, or the error rates that should be reported, should be based on proficiency tests which are, in as many ways as possible, similar to actual cases.
For instance, in this case, have you heard testimony that samples were degraded?
I have.
And you've also reviewed the testimony of Dr. Cotton, Mr. Sims, have you not?
I have.
And also of Colin Yamauchi with respect to proficiency testing that they've had at their 3 laboratories?
I have.
When they described the types of proficiency testing that they had, did they state that they were using samples that were representative of casework?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay. Did they, in any way, did they acknowledge?
There's no foundation for his opinion on that. Mr. Strike.
Overruled. Foundation, though.
Are you familiar with the testimony of Dr. Cotton, Mr. Sims, and Mr. Yamauchi that they did not have degraded samples in their proficiency tests?
I am.
Sustained. Answer stricken.
You want to have the page citations?
Proceed.
All right. Does the NRC report declare elsewhere the necessity of relying on external blind proficiency testing?
They do.
Overruled.
I call your attention to page 106 and 107 of the NRC report.
Aren't we getting redundant at this point?
This is the last one, Your Honor, and I'm out of the report. Do you agree, sir, with the statements expressed by the authors of the NRC report contained at the bottom of page 106 and the top of 107?
I do.
And in those statements, sir, does it talk about the necessity of external blind proficiency testing?
It does.
By the way, from a statistical standpoint, Professor, why is it necessary that laboratory error rates be calculated on the basis of external blind proficiency tests administered on a continuing basis?
Overruled.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Why is it essential that they be external proficiency tests?
Well, I think that's so that the tests will have credibility, so that there'll be uniformity in their application, so that the results can be widely disseminated, and also, in fact, so that they can be fully blind. It's rather hard to imagine blind in the sense that we're talking about tests which are internal.
Okay. And by the way, does the NRC report define what they mean by blind external proficiency testing?
They do.
And what is the definition given?
Well, external.
Sustained.
Do you agree with the definition given by the National Research Council in their report?
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
I do agree with the definition.
Okay. And what is the definition that they give?
Well, external means, of course, that the agency doing the proficiency testing is separate from the body that's being tested. Blind means that the people in the organisation being tested are not aware that the samples they are processing, the test samples, are any different from any other samples that they're processing in their normal casework.
And
Are we
third,
about to wind this up? I mean, this is the 5th witness who's told us about the difference between blind and open proficiency testing.
moving on from blind and external, why is it essential that the testing be done on a continual basis?
Well, for a start, if people make errors, then they should obviously take steps to correct them so such errors don't occur in the future, so that you need a continuing program of testing so that you see that the corrective measures you took are actually working. And also, of course, your error rate may be going down if things are getting better. So you want the most reasonable, up-to-date estimate of your error rate.
Can you give examples of the use of external blind proficiency testing to calculate laboratory error rates in other applications?
Yes, I can. I mean, they're used.
All right. Are you familiar with Dr. Gertie's testimony regarding the National Marrow Donor Program in which his laboratory participates?
Yes, I am.
Is the kind of external blind proficiency testing that they do one example?
It is.
Are you familiar with the use of external blinds in urine testing for the presence of illegal drugs by any government agencies in this country?
Yes, I am.
And what agency does that to your knowledge?
Well, the Federal Highway Administration does it, and I think a number of others do. They certainly do.
And do you know how it's accomplished?
Well, the urine samples are tested for illegal drugs by accredited testing organisations, and the samples should be sent to them by the people, by the employers of the drivers, and they are instructed how many samples that they should include that will be blind to the testing agency, which will either have no drugs or there will be some that are spiked to have specific drugs. And then the test will be whether the testing agency actually detects the ones that have no blood, no drugs, and finds the appropriate drugs in the ones that have been spiked with drugs.
By the way, even outside the fields of chemical analysis, are there other examples that you can think of where external blind proficiency testing is utilized in a similar way?
Yes, I've met it in the mining area where if you go out and do some prospecting and you have some samples that you think contain valuable ore, you're going to send them off to a chemical laboratory for analysis to, say, for example, gold or silver or copper, then you're very interested in whether you've got accurate determinations of the concentrations of these samples. So it's very, very common in that area to include samples with known concentrations over a whole variety of levels so that you can have a check with your unknown samples on the laboratory doing the work. And the laboratory, of course, doesn't know which are the new samples and which are the known samples. This is quite routine in the mining industry.
In this particular case, are you aware that Dr. Weir testified that he rejects the notion of an error rate? Page 33.
Calls for hearsay.
Sustain.
Have you... One moment. You said earlier that you're familiar with Dr. Bruce Weir's testimony in this case.
I have read it.
Did you review that portion of Dr. Weir's testimony where he gave his opinion on the relevance of error rates in forensic DNA profiling?
I saw it, yes.
And what was the opinion that he gave?
Well, I believe he stated that he rejects the notion of an error rate.
And sir, did you also review Dr. Cotton's testimony on the same subject?
I did.
And what was Dr. Cotton's opinion, as best you can recall, on the same question?
This is not as precisely recalled, but I believe she said they made errors in the past and they don't make them anymore.
All right. Let me...
That calls for speculation. That's not what she said. That misstates the testimony.
Or the jury heard what Dr. Cotton said as with Dr. Weir. Or the jury can compare the two and see if there's a difference that's significant.
One moment. May I approach the witness to show him a portion of testimony?
See?
Thank you. Sure. You can.
Yep.
It's 27471. 71. Are you familiar with the opinion that Dr. Cotton gave on the role of laboratory error rates in evaluating the weight of DNA evidence.
Yes,
And what was her opinion?
that it should play no role.
Sir, do you agree with that opinion of Dr. Cotton?
I don't, no.
And do you agree with that opinion of Dr. Weir?
No.
Now, in your opinion, sir, does the NRC report also disagree with the opinions of Dr. Weir and Dr. Cotton on that point?
Sustained.
Well, as an expert who is asked to interpret those portions of the report that deal with statistical issues, what is your opinion as to whether the NRC report rejects or disagrees with the opinions of Bruce Weir and Robin Cotton?
Mistakes the sections that were
Sustained.
Well, does the NRC report endorse the use of error rates based on external blind proficiency testing as a necessity for interpreting forensic DNA profiles?
That's how I read the report.
Are there other experts besides the NRC report whose opinions you have considered as well?
Oh,
Yes, there are.
Maybe we should approach it this moment, Your Honor.
proceed.
Okay. In the field of statistics, as opposed to, I'm sorry, withdrawing. In the field of statistics as applied to genetics, who would those other experts be whose opinions on this matter you have listened to?
Objection. The names, Your Honor, it's clear where we're going. This calls for hearsay, no foundation.
Well, a number of professors of statistics that I know who are interested in or knowledgeable about genetics.
And could you please tell us the names of those people whose opinions you considered?
Objection. This is what we discussed before.
Are those notes you're referring to there, Doctor?
Well, I have the list of notes. I can say them without referring to notes.
I have not been provided with a copy of those in spite of my repeated requests, Your Honor.
Proceed.
May I have a copy of those, Your Honor? I've never seen them, Your Honor.
Well, have a seat. We'll take that up shortly.
Could you please tell us the names of the experts in the field of statistics as applied to genetics whose opinions you have considered on this particular question?
Dr. David Balding of the Queen Mary College in London. Dr. David Balding, B-A-L-D-I-N-G. Professor Peter Donnelly of the University of Chicago, D-O-N-N-E-L-L-Y. Professor Elizabeth Thompson of the University of Washington in Seattle.
All right, let me see counsel sidebar with report, please. Yep, we're missing 984. Here she is. All right, Mr. Neufeld.
Just one moment, Your Honor. Professor Speed, in this case, there has been testimony that for some of the items of evidence, such as the Bundy blood drops, a portion of the sample was sent for testing at one laboratory and another portion of the sample was sent to a second laboratory. Are you familiar with that testimony?
I am.
No, we would have seen him
To
slip
what
off.
extent does dividing the sample and sending it to 2 laboratories or 3 laboratories and finding that they get identical results reduce the chance that error explains the result from a statistical standpoint?
Over.
The chance that errors after the samples were sent would be reduced, but any errors that occurred prior to the samples being sent would not be protected by that multiple testing.
To what extent does obtaining the same results on different items of evidence reduce the chance of errors explaining the result?
Well, it's a similar issue. If there is a common source of error, then having consistency across different samples doesn't protect you against that source of error. But errors that would be separate to the samples.
Does this type of error have a name in the statistical literature?
It's very similar to what's called common mode failure in reliability.
Can you give an example of what common mode failure is in the reliability literature?
Well, there's a nice example that I like to use from my study of nuclear reactor safety, where people had what they regarded as independent safety systems that just happened to be wired through the same electrical
Popcorn.
switchboard. And there was a fire in that electrical switchboard, and it put out both of these, or a number of supposedly independent systems, because that was the common source back at the beginning. They were independent after they left the switchboard, but they were dependent through this common switching.
And how would you analogize that example to what has been testified to in this case?
Well, that having redundancy or replication will protect you against the impact of errors after the samples have been separated. But if there's an error that occurs at the time they were together or at the time before a particular sample was split and sent, then this extra redundancy doesn't help.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. Dr. Gerdes testified that given the manner in which the items of evidence were processed in this case, that, for instance, all the Bundy blood drops could have been cross-contaminated by Mr. Simpson's reference sample on the morning of June 14th, 1994. Would that be an example of common mode error?
Well, it would, yes.
And if the same error could affect all the swatches for a particular item, would sending the different swatches to different laboratories and getting identical results reduce the chance that the result is explained by that type of error?
No, it wouldn't.
And if the same error could have affected a number of different items whose results were identical, would that reduce the chance that the result is explained by that type of error?
No.
Are you aware that Cellmark does not participate in external blind proficiency tests?
Yes, I am.
Are you aware that the Department of Justice laboratory that Gary Sims works for does not participate in external blind proficiency testing?
Yes, I am.
And are you aware, sir, that the Los Angeles Police Department does not participate in external blind proficiency testing for its DNA tests?
Yes.
Save food? I don't
To
think I
your
can.
knowledge, sir, does the Los Angeles Police Department laboratory participate in any kind of proficiency testing which would help estimate the frequency of errors of the type discussed by Dr. Gerdes?
No, I don't believe so.
For instance, Professor, are there any proficiency tests addressing evidence collection, evidence processing before the DNA is actually extracted?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, what effect does the absence of external blind proficiency testing have on constructing a scientifically appropriate estimate of the laboratory's error rate?
Well, in the absence of such a test, you can't really do that. You don't have a suitable estimate of the error rate.
Without external blind proficiency testing?
That's correct.
Does that mean that the jury should act as if the error rate was zero?
So,
Sustained legal conclusion.
In your opinion, sir, is the error rate for forensic DNA testing conducted by the Los Angeles Police Department zero?
Sustained. Foundation.
All right. As a professor of statistics, have you assessed the role that error plays in various kinds of processes?
I have.
And have you assessed the role that error rates play in processes in which people are involved?
I have.
And as a result of what you have read and what you have studied, what is your opinion about error rates in processes where human beings are involved?
Irrelevant, no foundation.
Oh.
Well, error is involved in all human activities. And all processes, all particularly complex processes, errors will occur.
Yes.
The only question is, what is their rate?
We should have designated snacks.
Through your studies
Snacks
on error
is in
rates
pizza,
and proficiency testing,
subs,
Dr.
lasagna,
Speed,
spaghetti,
is it expected
turkey, snacks.
that error rates from blind external tests will be higher or lower than for open tests?
Sustained. Foundation.
Are you familiar with any literature which discusses the different expected error rates due from blind external tests as opposed to open tests?
Yes, I am.
And is this also a topic which is discussed amongst professors of statistics or statisticians in your field?
Yes.
And as a result of what you've read, and as a result of discussions that you've had with other members in your field, what is your opinion on this particular subject?
Well, it's generally the case that error rates with blind tests are greater than error rates with open tests.
And why is that, sir?
Well, it seems to me common sense is the explanation. I'm
I
not
can't
sure
play
I can really say
movies,
why
they're
it is, but,
copyrighted.
the sort of thing that happens when somebody knows they're being tested, they can do a more careful job, more thorough job. Whereas if it's just part of routine processing, then it may from time to time be treated less carefully.
Now, are you familiar, Professor, with Dr. Robin Cotton's testimony regarding the comparative likelihoods as to how someone could be falsely implicated by a DNA match?
Yes.
And what is her statement on that particular issue, as you can best recall it, sir?
If you have it in front of you, I'd rather read it, because I didn't do such a good time with my memory last time, or I could paraphrase.
May I approach the witness?
You're going to have to wind it up.
I'm going to finish in 5 minutes.
Yes, that's...
And what is, could you please tell us what Dr. Cotton's opinion is on this particular issue?
Well, she says that she agrees that if someone was falsely implicated by an RFLP DNA test, then it is more likely to have arisen by lab error than by this coincidental match. Perhaps I said that a bit fast.
Is there a scientific basis for knowing that the chance of erroneously concluding that Mr. Simpson is the source of the DNA tested is greater than the frequencies cited by Drs. Weir, Cotton, and Mr. Sims?
Hearsay, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Well, do you have expert knowledge of the relative sizes of these two contributions?
I do.
And
If
what
I do
is
that, I'll
the
get demonetized.
expert knowledge you have on the relative sizes of these two different types of explanations? One being the frequency of a coincidental match,
Again.
and the other being a match which is explained by error.
Well, the frequencies of coincidental matches, apart from the ones that have very, very few not very helpful loci, have been 1 in millions, 1 in billions, or 1 in trillions, whereas the frequencies of errors, even of the best labs, are of the order of 1 in 50, 1 in 100, or 1 in 200 for very, very good labs. So they are much, much bigger than the 1 in millions, 1 in billions, and 1 in trillions, and hence play a more important role in contributing to errors.
What is the importance of this difference to the statistical evaluation of the DNA evidence in this case?
It really means that you must know about the errors, and that you should really not be that concerned about the coincidental matches once it's reached a certain relatively small value. The errors will be much more important in this overall calculation.
Nothing further to say, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess at this time. And Professor Speed, you can step down. You're ordered to return tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, if you recollect back when I first issued the order placing you into sequestration as a jury, I indicated to you that the court staff would keep a collection of some of the news coverage in newspapers and magazines for you. And one of the selections that we made was by a news writer by the name of Robin Clark, who was a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is, as you know, one of this nation's oldest and most well-known newspapers. Mr. Clark was one of the regulars here. As you notice every day that you're here, there's always a regular contingent from the news media here with us. And Mr. Clark was one of the regulars. And I regret to tell you that he passed away over the weekend as a result of a car accident over on PCH. He studied journalism at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and he was a very accomplished writer. He was a Pulitzer Prize nominee for a story that he did while working for the Charlotte Observer, and he was an excellent reporter. He was liked, admired, and most importantly respected by his colleagues, and I think that's the highest tribute that anybody can pay in the journalism profession. So this evening we'll stand in recess in his memory. All right. You all have a nice day. Remember my admonitions.
All right.
Back on the record in...
Ignore that noise you hear in the background. I'm working. We made it. We made it to the next video, which is video number 395. Wow. All right. I don't know who the witnesses are going to be. I don't know if this... I know we're getting close to Dr. Lee, I think. Do I have that name wrong? Anyway, we're getting close. But we could start now. I can't tell because they don't show the witness box for a couple of videos. But thank you for coming out today. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope that you guys have a great, great, great day. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye, guys.